Welcome everyone to week number 3 in Science 214, where we're learning some more about the scientific process and how you as a citizen can use science to help you in your life and in forming opinions about what's happening in the world and how things work in the world. This week, I can't see my arrows. There we go. This week we're continuing a discussion about bias. We did that last week, and you learned about different types of bias, but we will continue this discussion and also about communicating science. So the first thing that I want to mention is that there are information gaps. Gaps between what? Between what scientists have discovered through their research and what the general public understands about a topic, right? So there's a big divide because it's difficult to read scientific research. And if you're just an ordinary person out there, you cannot read these scientific journal articles and make sense of them. So we got to bridge this gap somehow so that people, just the general public, can understand the science that's going on. How do we communicate this science? There's all different types of ways. First of all, any scientist should be able to tell you in about 5 minutes what they do, what they've discovered, and why it's important. It's called an elevator speech, right? Like you get on an elevator with a complete stranger and they ask you what you do, and you got to be able to explain that just a couple of minutes before they get off on the next floor, right? So have your elevator speech ready if you're a scientist. Plus, you need to volunteer to give presentations, to explain your research to news media, to different magazines like Scientific American. That's a great example there. To produce reviews of this particular topic, even in the scientific literature, to help everybody understand what it is that you do and what you've discovered. So there are all different kinds of ways to communicate science to the general public, and scientists need to do this and need to do it in a better way. If we don't, then all kinds of craziness happens. Misinformation. That means false information, where people believe one thing and that is not the truth. And boy, have we seen a lot of that in the last few years. Hysteria. People get really upset about things, and you should. Like when there's a pandemic, hello. When there's a pandemic, everybody should be upset and be concerned. But you also need to follow the science. So there's no use in losing your minds over something. You need to get the information and the proper information. And sometimes there's conflict because people disagree about things. And a lot of people think that their opinion is the most valuable thing in the world. And I'm sorry to say that isn't true, especially if you have absolutely nothing to back it up with. I'm going to give you an example of this right now of some misinformation. So I know someone who has an autoimmune disease, and they were complaining quite rapidly to me that they were having to pay several $100s a month for this particular treatment that they were taking. It's a shot. It comes in through the mail to them. It's a shot that they have to give themselves once a month, and they were complaining about this high price tag. And I said, okay, listen. This is not a drug where you mix chemical A, B, and C, put those together, and you make this new medicine that you have to take. That is not what you're getting. You are getting a monoclonal antibody that's blocking the receptors that are being stimulated by your own immune system. I said a monoclonal antibody is produced by animal cells. You have to grow these cells, and they're immune system cells. They're B cells. You have to grow them in culture by highly technically trained lab personnel, including PhDs, in highly, extremely sterile conditions, because anything will contaminate these cells. And then you have to isolate the antibodies, and you have to purify them, and you have to make sure that they are the correct ones. So you have to test them before you can send them out to anybody. I said, you should be surprised that that price tag is as low as it is, because it takes a tremendous amount of highly skilled manpower in order to get this particular medicine to you. And I said, aren't you so lucky that we understand so much about immunology now that we can produce monoclonal antibodies and treat your autoimmune disease? They backed off some. I won't say completely, but they did have to back off some because I had the information right there. I said, it's not just a simple little chemical that you take into your body to help fix you. It's a totally different kind of treatment. So misinformation, all kinds, is out there. But they never even looked it up to see what it was, to see what they were taking. Yeah, anyway. Find credible, reliable, relevant scientific sources to help back whatever your opinion is, whatever your stance is on a particular topic. You need to look at the science, especially if it's a scientific topic. Yeah. And that's what you're doing with this course. You're gaining tools to help you find scientific sources that are reliable, credible, and relevant. Relevant means it applies to your particular topic. And limit biases anytime we can in science. I talked about this last week. This is extremely important. We have to take bias out so that the answer that you're getting is the true answer about what is happening. Okay, let me find my arrow again. There we go. All right, so this week you've got discussion board postings, right? Remember, initial post is due by Thursday evening. The 2 response posts are due by Sunday evening. So choose an issue where there are information gaps between science and public perception, right? And I'm going to give you the example of GMOs. Because if you go to the general public right now, just walk out there, go to my Harris Teeter, and have a little clipboard and ask people questions. Are GMOs harmful to human health? I guarantee you 90% of people will say yes. And then you ask them, well, what is this based on? And they'll say, well, I've heard this. Okay. From where? Have you read any scientific studies about this? Have you read even like news articles about this where science is backing up the information? No. I would say, do you know how many of the foods that you eat are GMOs, genetically modified organisms? And they'll say, no. I said, okay, almost all of the corn, almost all the soybeans. And then I'll start ticking off the list. Yeah, so anything that's got corn as a byproduct, soybeans as byproduct, you got GMOs. You've been eating GMOs since the 90s, okay? So if they're really all that tremendously harmful, I'm pretty sure we would have seen a study about this, and yet so many people are convinced you eat GMOs and you're going to get cancer. No, there is no science that shows you that. So the differences between what science says and what the public perception is huge. There's this huge gap between what people think and what the science actually says. How can the media and journalists portray this issue to impact these gaps? And that means to lessen the gaps, right? To close the gaps. So there's real, true information out there that will help people decide on a particular topic. All right, and then in your 2 response posts, how does this information gap impact decision making? Yeah, so if we had our legislators vote on whether we should allow GMOs to be sold in this country or not, I could bet that they would say no. And yet they have no idea how prevalent they are or what their benefits are. Now, you ask some farmers and they will know. Legislators, no. General public, no. Okay, so how does this information gap impact decision making? What are the potential types of bias that impact this particular information gap that your classmate has about their particular topic. These are questions you're answering about their topic. And how can engaging in citizen science help to bridge this gap? That is very, very important. So the general public has to also educate themselves about topics in order to speak intelligently and to know what information is out there instead of just having opinions about everything, and the opinions are based on nothing. Nothing. That drives me crazy. Just because you have a nice feeling about something. No. All right, you don't have a journal assignment this time. You have a quiz. This is the 3-2 quiz, and it's on bias in research. So under your resources, there is an article called Bias in Research, and it's not hugely long, but it's several pages, and it gives you a lot of good information. Excuse me, and hiccups. This gives you a lot of good information about different types of bias in research. And then you're going to take a quiz. The quiz is online. It's automatically graded. You get 2 attempts, right? Now, I don't know if you can do this, but because I can't see the version that you have, I can only see my version. There are 2 attempts allowed. If it were me and I did not make 100% on my quiz and I wanted to improve my grade, I would do it the first time, and then I would open it up and read the question feedback to help me answer the question better. I'm not sure that you can read this question feedback after you made the first attempt, but look for it after you turn in your quiz, okay? Because I know you can go in there and look at the questions afterward. But like I said, you can attempt this twice. It says that there's a 30-minute time limit, but I don't believe it holds you to the 30 minutes. So just saying. You get 2 attempts, though, and that's it. And whatever your second one is, I guess whichever one is the highest one, is the grade that you get. So you have discussion board postings this week and this quiz after you have read Bias in Research. And with that being said, if you have any questions about what is going on, you also ought to be looking into the future, into week 4, to see what's coming up with your particular project information. If you have any doubts, if you have any concerns about the course and the assignments that you have, please let me know. Please ask me. m.sigmon, I don't know why that put a capital S, m.sigmon@snhu.edu. Just email me and I will be glad to email you back. With that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful week number 3 and enjoy the spring weather.